Should you ever get to that stage in Power BI where you're trying to write a function and you just don't get a list of the things you expect? So in this case, I expect to have a list of the columns, but in an if function, it's only giving me measures or the names of other functions. And it's not even all of the other functions. Sometimes you don't see the function that you want. So there are lots and lots of things that come up like this. And in DAX, I'm going to show you how to use certain wrapper functions that only have one input just to wrap around what you already have to help you return what you want to return, and how to avoid these kind of errors that might come up. My name is David and I have tons of videos that I record on Power BI, Excel, Google Sheets, Zoom, Teams, using Technical Workplace that I'm covering on my channel. So give this video a like if you learned something. So if, and then if I want to convert something into it, now Power BI only allows me to do something if it is a single value. And the issue with choosing a column is a column is multiple values. So even though I would only use this in a table that would have the right thing, Power BI doesn't let me use that. So instead of being able to choose dynasty, I can actually just choose selected value. I love using this one, and then dynasty. So this will work, and I'll show you what it does later on. So only one input, very rare that you'll use the alternative, equals Windsor, comma, value of true is going to say Windsor, otherwise older. Because Windsor is the current dynasty with King Charles, and before that Queen Elizabeth. So now this one works, and I can do that as a value on its own. It does give me a blank, and if I return that, it is going to show me older, because older just means that it's not specified before. So if I convert that into a table and I have dynasty here, then it's going to show me older for everything except for Windsor. Perfect. That works the way that I want it to. If you have a numerical column, then a new measure equals if, and then if I do years on throne, these will only show up with the measures. It won't show up with numerical columns, but I need to do a sum of years reigned. And this is a column, so this will show up, but you can't choose this without that. So in an if function, if it's a numerical thing, you have to aggregate it with a sum or an average, anything that converts multiple values into a single value. But with text, you use selected value, even though you're actually just going to get to what it is. So I'm going to create a new measure just with selected value. Next. So I'm going to say selected dynasty equals selected value, and this is just going to be dynasty, like that. Close your brackets, and then bring it out here, and make it, it is showing you a blank often if it doesn't give you anything. Let's make it into this card visual. It's going to show me blank, but if I click on a dynasty like this, it's going to now show me the name of that dynasty. That's all it does, super, super simple. Now, it does have another input, which is a comma, and you can say alternate result, could be select which. Super simple. And then it's just going to show me by default, select which, but if I have something selected, then it's going to show me that. There you go, select which. So a thing that I use quite often, selected value. Next up, we're going to look at when calculate doesn't do what we want it to do. So I do have another video where I talk about calculates, which is unlocking the power of DAX and how to move from Excel functions to Power BI functions. But in this time, I'm going to show you when something doesn't go as you expect. So here, for example, on the left, we have Queen years. So Queen years, to show you that, the DAX is calculate the years on the throne, where the gender is Queen. So where the gender is Queen, there have been 201 years that have been from Queens, and Kings have been 1,018 years. Now, it's a bit confusing because I have here in King, the Queen years is showing me 201. You'd expect it to show me 0. Equally, when I click on this, this is going to show me still Queen years 201, which is again something I wouldn't expect. Now, it does work where I'm filtering in other dimensions, which means that usually calculate will work, but it doesn't work in this context. And that is because it is always changing the filter context into being Queen, regardless of what is selected elsewhere. So in order to amend that, I can go to Queen years, and I can use another wrapper function called KEEPFILTERS. I use this quite a lot as well. And if I click on that, all I have to do is, for this argument, before I refer to the name of the column, I will just write KEEPFILTERS, and this takes just one expression, so that one equals queen. Close my brackets, enter, and if I click out, then it is showing me blank for king, and if I untick that, then it's just showing me blank and then 201, and then here is queen and queen. So this is how you might expect it to work. And to do that, use KEEPFILTERS and wrap that around what you need. I use KEEPFILTERS to wrap it around tables as well sometimes, but really, really useful. All right, next one. Let's say we want a measure that is the number of monarchs who have reigned less than 1 year. Often you get this that appears, and this is not allowed. And the reason is I'm doing a calculate of count of the number of monarchs where the number of years of throne are less than 1. Seems like it should work, but the calculate function just only allows certain methods to work and not allow other methods. In fact, I created this cheat sheet. So if you want to compare a measure, which is what we've done, we're comparing the years on the throne to something, then it won't work. If we want to compare a column to a formula, it also won't work, or a column to a column, it also won't work. So we need a filter function as a wrapper around the argument there. So to fix this, and you will see this kind of thing with the warning sign, you'll also see this, and you might also see this where you have got the wrong visual. So I have got selected monarch is more than 1 year, I have this symbol, and if I go to fix this, it will just remove this, or I can go to see details, and it will bring me to this one that says the same thing that I showed you earlier. Okay, so let's fix this. What you need to do is you need to wrap filter around it. And filter has two inputs, the table and then the filter expression. The filter expression is already what we have. We just need to pick a table that works for that, which in this case is just going to be the English monarchs table, comma, and then close our brackets for filter, and our calculator is already closed, and that is going to give us this one. So there were 8 monarchs that reigned for less than a year. All right, so we're kind of getting what's going on now is that Power BI treats things as either measures, which will usually be purple, or function names, which will be blue, light blue, and then table names or column names will be dark blue as well. And kind of scalar values will be in green and text will be in red. So that's kind of how it color codes things, but then it is going to show you only what is available. So in filter, this is a table function, which means that it will show me either FX functions related to creating a table, or it will show me table names. So here I have my table name dynasty, but I won't have dynasties and then the sub columns underneath that. Equally, if I look for the sum function, it won't give me the sum function, it'll give me summarize and summarize columns. There are 2 table creating functions. Now you can trick Power BI into choosing a column as a table by using the values function. So if I write values and this one, and we're going to look at this in more detail because it's really, really useful. Now you have the names of columns like that, and then you close your brackets for the values function and you get it to show up there. That will not give you an error, but it'll give you a blank because it's not really sensical. But just to show you, if I delete this and delete this here, it will now just tell me that it's not a table essentially. So look at what this is saying. And then the red underline will show you that error as well. There are kind of 3 types of DAX errors, the red underline, these kind of things that don't show up, and also this symbol that tells you it's an error as well. So that won't work, and I'm just going to use the English monarchs, which is what we had before. And let's next look at the values function and where that might come in useful. So the X family of functions are really, really common. They allow you to create a measure at one level using one aggregation and then another aggregation at a different level. So let's say we want to do it averaged by monarch and then summed by dynasty. So I might want to say equals, say, average summed by dynasty. And here I'm going to use SUMX. And I need a table and an expression similar to a filter. So here I want to do it at the dynasty level. So I want to do the dynasty. So what I can do is I can do values and then dynasty, like this, and choose the column. What values does is when a column name is given, it returns a single column table of unique values. So it will reduce this to unique values, which is almost always what you want to happen in these contexts. So comma, and then my expression is going to be average rain, which is a measure I've already created. So if I press enter there, this will work. And I can do this in that one by, say, dynasty, and then I can just create that in a table, and it will be average at this level, and then it gets summed at the total level. Versus if I do the average rain, it will do average and then average of everything down here. So in this context, it's not going to be very different apart from that, but the SUMX family of functions is really, really useful for a lot of other reasons. But that is just to show you that if you don't see what you want and you want a column name, you can create a table out of a column name using values. So back here, we have infinity, and that is because I have an impossible divide that by 0. If you want to avoid that, you can use the divide function, which I really like. You just say 9, 0. This will never return that because it'll just return a blank if it can't do anything. So I use divide here instead of usually using the slash. That is a good way to do it. Other reasons why you might want to see this is, a number does not exist. In this case, it's the square root of -1, something that famous mathematically returns a negative number. Or in this case, if you see fix this is something that has been deleted. So if I click on fix this, it will remove it, or see details means that something's wrong with it, i.e. you can't find it. So fix this will just remove it from there. All right, so I'm going to go to a new page and do another one. So here I'm going to do years of throne and monarch, and I'm going to make that into a table, and I'm going to see who has reigned for the longest. So Elizabeth II has reigned for the longest, followed by Queen Victoria. And here we have people who have reigned less than 1, which is 8, as we know from earlier. Yep, Queen Elizabeth II has reigned for the longest amount of time at the point of making this video. It'll be a long time before that is broken, because it was 70 years she was there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to a new measure, and we're going to say ranking on throne equals RANKX. And this is another one in the X family. I have 2 inputs, table expression. It's very rare that I'll use the other 3. So table, we're going to say English monarchs. Notice that it has to be a table again, and then a comma, and then my expression is going to just be the measure that I use, which is years on throne, like that. Note that I have to use a measure for this. I can't use just a column. And if I was to use a column, I need to wrap it in a sum function or a selected value if it was a text one. So press enter, and then I'm going to add that to my table, like that. But it gives me nonsensical results. In fact, it gives me from all of them to say 1. Now, what's actually happening behind the scenes with the DAX engine is that it's already filtering this to 1 row. So it's going to be ranking 1 of 1 for each one, which is a silly thing, but this is kind of how DAX operates. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this, and instead of this one, I'm going to wrap the all function around it. And the all function will get it to work, because it is going to say remove the filters that you currently have. And here I am, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then when it gets to ties, it goes like that, and then it jumps. So that's what the other inputs work, which is in value. This is very rarely used, but order, whether you want to ascending or descending, and the last one is how to deal with ties. So what we're going to do is now add a dynasty as a filter. So we have our dynasty here, and I can do that as a slicer, and then if I click on one, it's now not going to be ranked from 1 to 5 here. It's just going to be ranked in whatever ranking that is if the filters wouldn't apply. So we want it to take that. All right. Well, instead of all, we're going to use something called ALLSELECTED. And ALLSELECTED will return everything. It'll ignore the filters that have been applied inside the query, but keep the filters from outside. Perfect. So if I do that, ALLSELECTED, just keep everything the same, then now it will work with filters, which is really nice. Cool, so those are the functions I wanted to show you. So keep filters filter, selected value, values, and then all and all selected. If you have a DAX function that's not working or you can't get the list that you want to get, then these things will usually get it to work. From my experience, I try a DAX function, and if it doesn't work, then normally I'll fix it with one of these things. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this video. My name is David Benheim, and I have tons of videos on Power BI, Excel, Google Sheets, PowerPoint, Zoom, Teams. If you're using tech of the workplace, I'm covering on my channel. So give this video a like if you learned something. Thanks for watching.